A spectacular performance. Curry from half court. Sometimes, something looks like it's been there a while.
We are here, the 3 Points Podcast. After a little bit of time, a little bit of break, it was our off season. I know we said last time in August, I believe, after the Olympics finished, that we'll be back recording consistently and regularly, but obviously we didn't, so we apologize for that. But the NBA is about to start up again. The NBA bug is kicking in again, and I think what better way to return than a really big blockbuster trade that just happened 2 or 3 nights ago. Obviously, everyone has known at this point, the Minnesota Timberwolves are sending Karl Anthony Towns to the New York Knicks in exchange for Julius Randle, guard Dante DiVincenzo, and forward Keita Bates-Diop, and a future first-round pick via the Detroit Pistons. I think without diving too deep into the stats and like kind of the deeper analysis, let's start with our raw, immediate reactions to this trade. Let's start, I guess, just in order of the Zoom screens. We can start with Wes first. Like, first immediate reaction, like raw. You could have the most casual take imaginable. It doesn't matter. Just raw take.
I think this takes the Knicks up a level, and they're in that tier. They're in the tier of their own behind the Celtics, but between every other team in the East.
Okay.
So,
Thomas, your first raw, fresh off the oven. Fresh off the oven. Oh my God. Anyways, it's gonna take a little bit to get back into the flow of things, but immediate reactions.
I think I have to echo West almost exactly. He's spacing that they need. It gives them a real center because Mitchell Robinson's been injured like 75% of both the last 2 seasons.
and he's
It's
injured
a great
again.
move for them. Yeah,
So,
true.
My immediate reaction was I kind of liked it for both parties. I didn't think too deep as to why, because again, this was my raw reaction when I saw the tweet. I liked it for both parties. And my just kind of very basic logic behind that was the Knicks have great depth. They had it clearly last playoffs. They have a deep roster. To lose a little bit of depth to get a top center in the league, to get a all-star caliber player, a superstar that Cat has the potential to be. I thought that was a great trade-off. And as for the Timberwolves, they had that superstars in like obviously Anthony Edwards is number one, and then they had Cat as well, but they didn't have as much depth as they needed to compete for a ring. And in this trade, just right off the bat, I thought they did get depth as well. And I was the kind of a foreshadowing into when I started looking into the trade a little bit more and researching a little bit. I underrated Randall. I was like, oh, he'll be an all right player, but that's more for later as we get into the deeper analysis. I think our raw reactions, what would we have given it out of 10 before we dive? Just initial, like you literally saw the tweet within 5 minutes. What would if you could take yourself back 2-3 days ago, what rating out of 10 would you give?
from the Timberwolves perspective, I give it like a C plus or a C.
We on the 3 Points Podcast we do decimal ratings. That's our touch.
Oh,
That's
so
I
it'd
do
be
go
like
like a D.
okay, I was thinking like 65% initially, and
that's a
then
rookie score.
6.512. Or,
So
what do you mean? Is that not specific or what?
oh my Lord. Wow, Wes, really, it's been that long since you've been in the Bay Area. Remember the rating, dog? No whole numbers and no halves.
So 6.512?
Bro. So okay,
That
6.6.
0.02 is because of the
That,
pick.
what is it?
6.6. I'm gonna take a 6.6. And you, Thomas.
Well, from the Knicks
Yeah,
perspective,
Oh, and the Knicks perspective. Go ahead.
uh, like a 90 or 9.28.
Okay.
So 9.3,
9.3. All
rounded up.
right, great. Yeah, shut
That's an
your
A. That's an
yeah.
A.
All right. Thomas, you're
yeah. I mean, from the Timberwolves perspectives, I'm thinking D plus max, maybe
yeah,
C
you
minus if
already
you
tried the
consider the
joke.
cap
You already tried
situation.
the joke. You already
Oh,
tried this
it's not a
joke.
joke. I'm just
You
it's not a
already
joke.
tried this
I was
joke.
just
You already
giving my
tried this joke.
analysis.
You
It's
already
not
tried
it's not
saying the
really that
letter
funny. It wouldn't
grade.
be a
You
joke,
you
right?
you
Because it's
tried
not
saying
that
the
funny.
you tried saying the letter grade after I said we do the decimal ratings here on the 3
Which
Points
tried.
Podcast.
I think I
So,
said it pretty successfully.
please give your decimal rating. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh my. Okay, well, let's not derail the podcast. We're just getting back into it. No need to be stubborn.
Yeah,
I'd
let's
give it
give the
like a
decibel ratings, dog. Oh my
I
lord.
mean, gradings are honestly kind of are
But
cool
that's
too.
our
that's
thing. That's
that's how every
our
major
touch.
media outlets
But
that's
that's
how every
our
major
touch.
media outlet grades trades. But
That's our little touch. That's where we differentiate ourselves. We don't follow the pack. The pack follows us in the future, that is. So go ahead. Decimal
And
rating.
once we
Thank
get
you
all
very
these
much.
shorts out, Pax's gonna be
Oh,
following
baby, it's
us.
over.
who knows? They could be listening to a short right now. There's gonna be 30 per episode. Um,
Dude, a short
yeah,
on
I'd give it like a 5.9 from the Timberwolves perspectives.
Okay.
Um,
respectable.
and like an 8.8 from the
Okay.
Knicks.
Okay. That was your guys' initial reactions. My initial
That was my
reaction.
initial reaction.
My initial reaction was definitely like from the Timberwolves perspective, I think like an 8.3. And then for the Knicks
Really?
perspective, I gave it like my initial reaction was about like a 8.6.
So
And
about even.
about honestly about even.
Wow.
Yeah, honestly. So, and then now I think let's kind of dive into 2 days later. How are we feeling about it now? So now has our rating changed? That's the first question I have for you guys. Have you guys' ratings changed at all?
I mean, for me, I guess I gotta hear what your reasoning is for why this is like pretty all right for the Timberwolves, but yeah, maybe it's like gone up a bit. I mean, it's like the value is like pretty comparable, but I would just say like there's for other reasons, it's still a pretty bad trade, I think, for Minnesota.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thomas.
6.5 or whatever still.
Okay,
Well,
so
I
so
mean,
so okay, how about this? How about I'll start with my analysis of what I think afterwards because obviously mine is different than the pack, I
Yeah.
guess. So first things first, like I said initially, when the trade happened, and like I said earlier, I think overall this is a dub for both teams. I think this is a dub for the first thing is I think this is great for all players involved. They all needed a little change of scenery. Cat's been with the Timberwolves for 10 years now. This would have or something like that. Randall's been with the
about
Knicks for
yeah,
like 3-ish seasons, 4 seasons, and
yeah.
DiVincenzo, although new to the Knicks relatively, there were reports that he was unhappy coming off the bench. Okay,
True.
Randall saw a little bit of a slump in production compared to the prior season. Obviously, injury was a factor to that, but he was slowly kind of getting his value was decreasing in the team because of obviously Brunson's insane jump. That not many people saw, right? The DiVincenzo's amazing jump. The team clearly did really well with him not in the playoffs, right? So his value is decreasing. I don't think, and I think, and then for Cat, obviously this was the furthest they've ever been, but his playoff struggles were very apparent. He didn't do really hot, and I think after 9 seasons, I think this was their Cat. What the Timberwolves did last season. I don't because Gobert's getting older. It's not like they did much with their depth off the bench, and I think a new place for all these players to play is beneficial for them for their career, right? And now I think when I talk about Randall, right? Earlier I said that for Randall, I underrated him because I completely forgot he's a 3-time All-Star. Obviously, one most improved player. Thomas is laughing at
Damn
him being a
straight.
3-time All-Star. 3-time All-Star, most improved player. He was an all NBA player as well, I believe, 1 or 2 times. So he's a
Twice.
quality player, right? When he wasn't injured in 2023, he was averaging 25 points per game, 10 rebounds, 4.1 assists on a little bit below league average efficiency, 46% from the field and 34% from three, but 58% true shooting and only 29% usage rate, right? So overall, a very quality player. Very, very quality player. Obviously, DiVincenzo, he was more of like a role player-esque guy, but I think his burst in the playoffs really showed that, hey, he could start. And he very well could. And he could be a 2B type player to our roster, right?
Mhm.
So I think the Timberwolves are getting a guy with an all-star ceiling, which is Julius Randle. Like if he comes back, he's a new start, new place, comes back refreshed, kind of like Andrew Wiggins for us in 2020 when he came to the Warriors. He kind of revived his career basically, right? He was freaking forgotten when he was with the Timberwolves, and when he came with us, all-star, very good defensive player, was a very key piece to us to win a chip, right? So that's what my main thing for Randall is. I think him moving to the Timberwolves could provide that type of impact for him. And as I said earlier, the Timberwolves had a lot of top-heavy stars like Cat, Edwards offensively, and then Gobert defensively, but not much offensively. But their depth wasn't as great as obviously a team like the Knicks. The Knicks have depth. And then especially with the addition of Mikal Bridges, they're just adding to that depth. So they could afford to lose a little bit of depth, DiVincenzo, and lose a player that didn't really do much for them in the last playoffs, and they clearly did really well without Randall, for a superstar who, for the Timberwolves in the playoffs, kind of struggled. Now, does that mean that, yeah, Cat is going to struggle every playoffs? No, but clearly they did pretty well. They made it to the Western Conference Finals. Yeah, they did lose in 6 because Cat struggled a lot, but I think they get an all-star caliber player in Randall. They could get that depth and that other kind of solid role players in DiVincenzo. And then for the Knicks, like I said, they lose a little bit of depth, but they got more already. And then they add a superstar caliber player. So I think overall, across the board, it's a dub for both teams.
Okay, I kind of want to go first to
Okay.
like kind of defame the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, I think you outlined pretty good. Like Dante is obviously like a great role player. Like even with us, like 2 years ago, he was like one of the best players on our team, especially in the playoffs. He's elite, and he showed that the same year after with the Knicks. Like when everyone went down, him, Josh Hart, and Jalen Brunson were balling out. Like he put up like a 35-point game, I think, against the Pacers. I can't say anything bad about Dante, and I do think like he did need a change of scenery because even though like on paper the chemistry is kind of good because of the Nova boys, like you said, the airport came out. He did not want to be coming off the bench. So I guess like in Minnesota, hopefully he's starting because if not, then it's kind of just the same problem
Yeah.
again. But
He
but I mean,
he probably will be.
yeah.
I'm
But I
like
mean
90% certain what. Yeah, he'll probably be starting.
him,
It'll be him, Mike Conley, and Ant. Will probably
Jay
be the one, two,
McDaniels
three.
though. Jay McDaniels.
I would guess Jaden McDaniels plays the 4 and Gobert plays the 5. I would guess they're
Okay.
going to try to go a little bit small. That's just my
Okay. Okay.
You
instincts.
think Randall's coming off the bench?
Oh yeah, that's true.
That is kind of where I was going. That's what I would. But
Oh, yeah,
we'll
yeah.
get
Let
to
Wes
that.
finish his point. Yeah.
But, I mean, I was just gonna say like it would. You said they kind of like capped their ceiling. Like this is the ceiling. I think now their ceiling is like even more capped because like, I mean, you're kind of writing this out with Anthony Edwards, your young star, and I wish they would have just like ran it back with the same squad and like see how far you can get because I think Ant is like kind of as good as he is. That's how far you're gonna get in the playoffs, and it wasn't like obviously Cat he did fall off like in he kind of came and went like in game 7 against the Nuggets. He was incredible, like one of the only players that was good. But then, like you said, in in the Mavericks series, he was kind of the reason they fell off. I think Anthony Edwards, it's kind of up to him, like maturing as a passer, because I mean, he was kind of also a reason why they cannot make it as far. He's an incredible scorer. He never really turned it off. It was just his play style and like kind of situational awareness that's just going to come with time, and you kind of just have to let that mature over time and just play with the same squad. And again, another part of Anthony Edwards' game is like getting downhill. He's one of the best drivers in the league. Like that's his whole game. As good as a pull-up shooter as he's become, his athleticism getting downhill to the rim is that's everything, you know? So like to his game for the most part. And I think like one of the main problems again in these playoffs that he struggled with is like actually getting that penetration. Like we saw like he was passing it up a lot against the Dallas Mavericks defense because they're strong rim protection. And that's because their spacing wasn't incredible. I mean, Rudy Gobert, that's one of his most like his biggest criticism because as good as he is on the defensive end, he is kind of a black hole on the offensive end. And guys like Derek Lively or in different series, a guy like Chet Holmgren, they can just kind of roam off of non-shooters. And I think what you bring in with Julius Randle is a hot and cold shooter. So, and he surely doesn't demand the respect that a guy like Karl Anthony Towns does on the perimeter. So if the spacing situation was already kind of poor for Anthony Edwards to kind of go to work and like win these tough games for Minnesota when he's the only skilled offensive player. It's only going to get worse when instead of Gobert and Cat out there. You have Gobert and Julius Randle, who when he's on, like I mean, like you said, he's a skilled player. You underrated him. I loved him when he's for some reason I guess I like his game, but like when he just doesn't demand the respect that a Karl Anthony Towns does, and I think that's just like the main downfall is you do get like two players instead of one. But I think when you're getting like the far worse individual player, like I think the gap between Cat and Julius Randle is like huge, especially when it comes from like a how much do you respect him point of view. Like Julius Randle, like he has a reputation for falling off in the playoffs, and that's he earned that reputation. Like as much as I like him in the regular season, he said like four-time All-Star, two-time All-NBA. He crumbles in the playoffs, and he got injured
You
this year.
exaggerate that a
So
little bit.
what?
Casually. You added one to both.
Okay.
Three-time All-Star, one-time
Five-time
All-NBA. But,
All-Star, 10-time
yes,
All-NBA,
yeah, all
Julius
the same.
Randle, two-time MVP. But he crumbles in the playoffs, and guys know that. And in an even tougher conference, the Western Conference, with better rim protectors, I would argue, like Chet Holmgren, Derek Lively, you said, of
Trace
course,
Jackson Davis,
Trace Jackson Davis. I was trying to think of our
Draymond
center,
Green,
trying to think of our center,
Draymond Green,
but
Dario Saric.
I just think
Andrew
like
Wiggins.
in a tough conference, they kind of made like they went for like a ballsy move to kind of like I guess bolster the talent around Anthony Edwards, and in my opinion, it didn't really work out because the spacing is worse, in my opinion. Julius Randle, of course, he's like a great uh he's a really good rebounder, great pull-up shooter, great rebounder. I mean all that, like I said, rebounder. But for those reasons, I think it's just kind of like detrimental. It's not like I said, the value is not like insanely different. I just think it's kind of like like why would you do this trade instead of just like running it back and seeing if you can get further with, in my opinion, the better talented team. Had you not done this trade, I think the Timberwolves would have been better. I mean, obviously and then from the Knicks perspective, I mean, you kind of outlined the reasons I agree with. So like Cat, I just think he fits alongside Jalen Brunson with Mitchell Robinson getting injured. It kind of kills two birds with one stone because you need a center. And like Cat's obviously not a great uh like rim protecting center, so it's not great from that perspective, but you do need the center. And he works as a co-star to Jalen Brunson anyways, so it's kind of a win-win until Mitchell Robinson gets back. That rim protection is going to be kind of hit or miss, but you do have like one of the two best like wing tandems in Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby anyways. So on that perimeter, nothing's really getting to him, hopefully. So yeah, that's my reasons.
Okay. Thomas, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, okay. So I guess first thing that's really important to mention is that there's a lot of people just asking like, why did Minnesota even do this? Like Wes, you just asked that. The reason is because it's salary. Like that's
Yeah,
the real problem.
but you're not
That's
even
what
saving that
prompted this
much.
trade.
I don't think he's saving enough
Well,
to.
the idea is that you save enough to sign Naz Reid to a bigger long-term deal because you view him as like a piece going forward. The idea is that you save enough to also then sign Rudy Gobert to his last big contract and let him ride out with you because he's the key to your entire defense. Um, and the other thing is that then you don't have to pay Cat, who just had a pretty disastrous last series with your team. Cat, who's kind of has a reputation for being soft and for underperforming in the playoffs. Cat, he's been around for a while and has never made that next leap with your team. You also don't have to then pay him a giant extension. And so when you combine all that, like I understand the logic very clearly from the Timberwolves perspective, but I'm sure that they fished around to see who all was available and what the market was for Cat before deciding to go with this package. But I still just don't think they got enough, all things considered. I think Julius Randle's basically a non-factor. I I just don't view him as a playoff contributor at all. I doubt he'll be getting that many minutes come playoff time. I and he can prove me wrong because obviously he's a genuinely great player in the regular season. And he's been a great player in multiple regular seasons. He basically carried the Knicks to the playoffs in I want to say 2021 or was that the
Mhm.
2021-22
Yep.
season, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. He's done that before. So he's the kind of guy like if you send him to I don't know, like a Kings type, or a
Charlotte.
Pelicans type team that are even Charlotte, a team that's kind of on the fringes of the
I
plan.
mean,
I
anything
could
would
say,
help
oh yeah,
Charlotte.
Oh, he's going to get them to the play. He's going to make them a playoff team. But and earlier I said I don't think he'll be in the starting lineup. I should probably amend that. I don't think he'll be in the closing lineup. I would guess that he at least during the regular season he'd start over Jaden McDaniels, thinking about it more. But come playoff time or come close games in the regular season, he's not going to be in that closing lineup. Maybe in the regular season, but definitely not in the playoffs. He doesn't provide enough on the defensive end. For a guy who plays the four, he's really not a secondary rim protector at all. Aside from scoring, he just doesn't have really a major secondary skill set outside of rebounding. And as we all know, rebounding, especially in the modern NBA, is kind of it's on the less valuable end of all the skills you can have. And with the exception of certain guys, like your Isaiah Hartensteins, your Josh Harts, your Kevon Looney's, who are so exceptional at it that it's like an anomaly.
Were exceptional.
Well, yeah, Kevon Looney of 3 years ago, but still,
Before his knees gave out.
it's not really that valuable. So, yeah, I don't really like. I just don't. I'm not factoring in Julius Randle that much. I have to be honest. Now again, I should be clear. The main reason why he's always struggled in the playoffs is because he just forgets how to shoot, and that's the kind of thing that can just go away. Like we've seen guys go on hot shooting stretches for the entire playoff series, and then all of a sudden they look great. And actually, speaking of that, I also think that the Knicks did a really good job selling high on Dante DiVincenzo. He's not a guy who's going to give. I just don't think he's a guy who's going to give you 35 in playoff games that often. I think selling him off after he had his best playoff run of his entire career, his hottest shooting playoff run of his entire career, is a really good move. Wes, you mentioned like how well he played with us in the playoffs, and he did play well, but it was nowhere close to what he did in New York. Like that was a major anomaly. But you consider, I mean, going into that playoff run, nobody saw him the way that they saw him going out. And if we look at recent history of guys who get paid off of hot playoff runs, like DeAndre Ayton, like what's his name from Miami, Caleb Martin, and Gabe Vincent actually both got paid off hot playoff runs and were basically non-factors this season.
The other guy,
Duncan
Cleveland.
Robinson.
No, Cleveland.
Duncan
Max
Robinson.
Strus.
Famously.
Max Strus.
Max Strus.
Extras, Jesus Christ, Miami turns out these guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's definitely precedent for guys having hot playoff series and getting paid, or playoff runs and getting paid, and then never quite measuring up to that standard again. So I would probably bet on Dante DiVincenzo never quite reaching that again, even if he is a very valuable piece. And
LeBron has done that for 22 years, 21 years. One playoff, man. These NBA teams, they keep falling for it. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I mean, that's a very valuable observation too. Yeah, he's another guy you could throw into that pile.
You could put Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, LeBron James,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Just throw him in there.
What's up, Wes?
Kareem
The second
Abdul-Jabbar.
greatest player of all time with LeBron.
Oh my bad.
Anyways,
Let's be serious. Yeah. Anyways, setting all that aside, I'd at least like one or two more points. Oh yeah, Dante DiVincenzo, great fit next to Anthony Edwards. They need shooters. One of Wes, you were talking about earlier, like Anthony Edwards, his pull-up jump shooting game, like it's improved, but it's not quite to the level of a lot of other high-volume guards and wings in the league.
But yeah, that's what I'm
And
saying. Like that, his shooting and his playmaking are two things that kind of have to like improve for him to get
Yeah,
even like incrementally better.
but
So, yeah.
when you have a guy who's such a factor and a force as a driver, but who's not that much of a force as a pull-up shooter, you want to surround him with shooters. So it's really nice to see them get DiVincenzo, and that's why I do think they're going to emphasize playing him alongside Anthony Edwards, because I think that's why you bring him in. And then Cat to the Knicks almost feels like too obvious to even do that much analysis on. Like you have all these wings, you have Jalen Brunson, who's one of the best high volume creators and distributors in the league at this point. You need a center because you know that Mitchell Robinson's going to be injured when it counts. You just let go of Hartenstein because you couldn't afford to pay him. I mean, it's just perfect. And obviously, Cat, like, if he has another disaster class playoff series, then you have to go, well, that's tough. That didn't work out. But it's probably safe to bet on him playing a little bit better, especially alongside a guy like Brunson, alongside guys like Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, who are going to limit what he has to do on the defensive end by virtue of just being so dominant themselves. And yeah, I mean, and let's face it, like I always say, modern NBA is about shooting. Cat's a career 40% three-point shooter. Every team wants a guy like that. The fact that he can play the five, such an incredible added bonus. And let's also not forget, for a guy who does have a reputation and a justified one of being weak on the defensive end, he gave Jokic some serious problems last year and probably was one of the single most important factors to them winning that series. So he can provide you some value on that end, especially in a potential matchup against the 76ers, which might be something that they were
or the
factoring in.
Bucks. Or the Bucks.
Or the Bucks against Giannis, because I mean, if you look at, I always joke, like he's built, I mean, he's just just a wide person. Like he's very, I don't know how to describe it.
He's broad.
He's thick. He's broad. Yeah. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's what?
He's thick.
CK
No,
or
like thick
CC?
of, oh,
Three
CK.
C's.
Okay, 3C. Go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, that's about
Okay.
it. But yeah, I mean,
Okay. Good.
I think it's a clear win for the Knicks, and I think the Timberwolves are probably backed into a corner, but I would have liked to see them get a little bit more out of Cat.
Yeah, I do want to be clear, like, I don't think the Timberwolves are gonna like fall off or anything like that. Like even though I think they lost this trade, they're still like a playoff team for sure. I mean, they just have like the personnel they have defensively and even like offensively aggregately. Like, I like Randall as a player, and I think in the regular season he's pretty good or like very good, like all NBA. It's just like it seems like in the playoffs he shrinks, and even in the regular season I don't really like fit too much, but I think they're gonna survive to make it into the playoffs. Still,
That's the one other thing I wanted to say. Like that is one of the really frustrating things about that trade for the Timberwolves is that you already have Anthony Edwards, who again, I'm not trying to paint him as a non-shooter, but he's not an elite shooter. And you bring in a guy to basically be the co-star, to be the second highest leading scorer you'd assume on that team, who's also famously a iffy, spotty shooter, especially in the playoffs. So that's just one more thing, you kind of throw on the pile. Not really a fan.
yeah.
So definitely, I think I wanted to address some things, and then we'll move on to some small Warrior talk. We don't want to make this episode too long. The one thing is, so you did mention, Wes, that the lack of spacing has been their issue, which is facts. They lost probably the best shooting center of all time, Cat, probably, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you lose that for sure. You lose a little bit of spacing. However, you do get an elite 3-point shooter in Dante DiVincenzo. I think he was really like top 5 in shooting three volume percentage wise last season. And then in the playoffs, he tore it up. Thomas did make a phenomenal point about elite playoff performances leading to you getting a big bag. And I would kind of draw that connection to like soccer in the World Cup. A prime example being like James Rodriguez in 2014 with Colombia. He tore up the World Cup and he got a massive contract and he moved to Real Madrid. And he amounted to nothing. He went to Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, moved around, didn't do much though. So to draw that parallel to the NBA, I definitely see that. However, I think DiVincenzo has proven to always been a very, very solid player, a very respectable player. And guess what? He's never been given the opportunity to flourish and to kind of go out there and do his thing like he was with the Knicks. With the Warriors, we were talking about him with the Warriors in the playoffs. We saw it firsthand. Kerr was giving him 10 to 15 minutes in the freaking playoffs. That was the biggest frustration. We were using him like how kind of Josh Hart is being used for the Knicks right now, like a rebounder.
Yeah.
And it was a complete misfit. So, and I remember a couple episodes I was like complaining about Kerr, like this is like a knock on Kerr because it's a very bad misread. We used DiVincenzo terribly with the Warriors. And the Knicks use him really well. I think
Dude, Anthony Lamb got minutes over him.
Is he even in New Zealand still? Or is he like in the streets now? He's jobless now. But exactly. So
he could never be in the streets, dude. Kerr would let him stay at his house.
him and Chris Paul. So I think we misused him really, really poorly. And obviously, if you go back into DiVincenzo's earlier career, like with the Bucks, obviously he was young, he flourished, he got better. So with the Knicks, he was given an opportunity, and he clearly capitalized on it. Now the question is it a fluke, or will he continue with the Timberwolves? I don't think it's a fluke. I think he will play at a at the same level, or at least in the same category as a good player, because his role will be very big with the Timberwolves. He'll be starting for sure, and he'll get a lot of ball time. He'll get a lot of shooting because they need shooters, like you said, right? So that's for DiVincenzo. For Randall, I personally think this could be, and I'm betting on, like, obviously, because it would be, I'm not trying to do that scapegoat thing. I think maybe this is going to, no, I think it will, and I want it to happen, that this will be like a Wiggins situation. Randall has the tools, he has the capabilities. Clearly, if in the regular season, he's able to play really well. 3-time All-Star, averaging, like I said earlier, like 25.1 points in the regular season is a pretty big deal. And I would like to also remind, he's only been in 2 playoffs, 2021 and 2023.
What happened?
And there's a massive drop off. I agree. He went from, in 2023, from going 25.1 points per game, he went to 16.6 points per game. And his efficiency went from 46% to 37% from the field. And his 3-point shooting went from 34% to 25%. I hear you. He is a massive playoff choker. However, I think, just like for Andrew Wiggins, he was counted out. He was basically like, it's over. He's going there just to kind of ride the next few years. It was a bad trade by the Warriors. People said it was a terrible trade for us when we got Wiggins. I personally think it could be like that for Randall. He's in his prime. He's 28, 29, I think. He needs a fresh start, fresh look. When he came to the Knicks, that's when he won his most improved player. I think this will be like that for Randall. I'm buying into that. Thomas put in Ben Simmons, he put out of his budget of $100. He put $100 and he took a loan out of $100 and put $200 total in.
I'm gonna do a few more loans this season because I'm kind of out of money.
I'm going all into Randall. I really am. And I think that's what the Timberwolves front office is doing too. Thomas is saying he thinks that he's a non-factor. I think he's a big factor. I think he'll show up. He'll play really well. He'll show up in the playoffs. He won't have as much pressure, I think. I think with Ant being the number one, I think then the offensive 2A and 2B will be like DiVincenzo and Rand. That's what I think, something like that they would go for, because Mike Conley's getting older. Obviously, McDaniels he's not a crazy offensive threat. So that's what I think for Randall and DiVincenzo. And then, of course, Cat, he's going to be a very good fit for the Knicks. I'm very excited for the Knicks. I really like Brunson. I really like their core. I like Mikal Bridges. I like Josh Hart. So I'm excited for them. But I think
Deuce McBride. Deuce McBride.
Oh yeah, Deuce McBride, Wes's pick of the 6th man of the year, foreshadowing. So anyways, I think that will probably sum up, and we'll end our reaction to the trade. Let's just shift a little bit on the Warriors briefly before we end this episode. Nothing crazy has happened. As we mentioned earlier, Curry got the extension. He's going to be with us until the 2027 season. Am I correct?
I think so.
It was only a 1 year. I thought it was only a 1 year.
It was 1 year, right?
I think it was 1 year onto his existing deal, which went to 2026. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have him for a little bit longer. Warriors fans, he's not going to leave us unless we trade him, which I highly, highly doubt would happen. Some other contract talks are for Kuminga. I was reading an article where some sports analysts, take that with a grain of salt, if you will, were saying that, if the Warriors don't give him an extension by the trade, by like October, they may trade him by the trade deadline. So there are talks about that for sure. I mean, I'm excited to see what the Warriors do. I think definitely it's heartbreaking. Not to get too much into the preseason. Season's about to be rough. That's what I'm thinking. Every season we were able to cope a little bit, because I think last season was our last season to cope, because we still had Clay before he went 0 for 10. We still had hope in Wiggins.
What's going to be so rough? I'm so confused.
Dude, the season is over. Like, it's actually gonna be so
What are you
rough.
talking about? Oh my God.
Like,
I can see it now. I can see the Lego right now.
What?
oh my God, I'm actually so horrified. Like, I'm genuinely horrified. It's gonna be really rough.
Wow.
However, not to get too much to that. In more Warriors news, the preseason begins in 3 days in Hawaii, and for the first ever practice after the entire offseason, after the missing the entire damn playoff, Andrew Wiggins missed the first practice because he was under
Checked
the
out.
weather. Checked out. Still on vacation mode. I think that's
When he locks in,
foreshadowing.
though,
I think that's foreshadowing for the season. So it's about to be a lot of that. It's gonna be a lot of that.
he's just giving
Hopefully,
us a taste.
I also saw another in media day. Someone was like to Draymond, what do you do to Clay? I'm gonna talk trash to him. Blah 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 blah. They're like, dog. We don't need you to get suspended, dog. We're not 2017 Warriors. We're not 20. Dog, just show up. Just play 30-ish minutes. You know what I mean? Just do your thing. No need to swing. No need to do all that. You know what I mean? Like, I think one of the announcers like, are you gonna play this season? I'm gonna show up every. It's like, bro. Just take it easy. Just take it easy. Big dog.
That's the first time. Who were we talking about? So, I keep seeing all these memes like with like Klay Thompson when he sees Draymond Green in the opposing team's uniform for the first time. And it's like,
Literally, dude, Draymond,
dude,
please just play on the court. Just please play on the
dude,
court.
I need Draymond. I need Draymond to punch Klay. That's my one wish for this season.
Oh my
If you
God.
think if you think the season's over, then if you think it's already over, you think there's no chance to compete, and if it really is, my one wish for the season is that Draymond just like takes a swing at Klay at some point.
I guess, but I don't think I missed any other Warrior
Opening
news.
tip off, just
It just tackles him. Oh my God. Any other news?
Um, yeah, not that I can think. I mean, the Kaminga stuff. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of
All
touched on
right.
that though.
Well,
I
Yeah.
don't have news. I don't have news, but quick question. Where do you guys see the New York Knicks after this trade? It's like quick 10-second.
I mean,
Eastern Conference Finals. I think just
yeah, I agree.
raw reaction.
Okay.
I see them Eastern Conference Finals, but we'll dive deeper into that in our preseason
Mm-hmm.
predictions coming to you soon. I think we're gonna end off the episode there. Apologies for the inconsistent uploading. The NBA bug is back. The season is rolling around. We're feeling that bug again. We're excited. Another thing I did mention: Quinton Post, 2-way contract. Shout out, round of applause.
Yep,
I think he's like the only 7-footer on our team. Only dude taller
he
than
is.
He's the only dude taller than 6'10", I think, even.
Well,
Yeah,
Trace
he
is
is
6'1",
absolutely.
right?
Trace is
He's
6'9",
Trace
right?
supposedly grew an inch this offseason.
Woo! Yeah, just like Kuminga, right? Moody was like, man,
Oh, yeah.
Kuminga, he's
Like
tall
7.
as F now. He's 7 feet. Dog.
Kendrick Perkins. I'm getting rumors that Jonathan Kaminga is now 7'3", so that's gonna be huge for the Warriors going forward.
Okay. Perk.
Classic.
Perk. Stay off the perk.
Bro, that is elite. We need him. Oh my God, we need him on the pod. But yeah, we apologize for the inconsistency. We'll be back. And we also apologize because, at least personally me, I felt like I was a little bit off my mojo, a little like, kind of I felt like Andrew Wiggins on the court today. Just kind of didn't feel like I had
Unwell.
I didn't have my whole full footing. So I apologize for the content seemed a little bit more mumbly jumbly, a little bit out of control. We'll be back into it. We'll be back in the mojo of things, and we'll be good. So we're gonna be signing off.